You're standing in the middle of a salt flat. No road, no sign, no signal on your phone. The sun is straight up, so you can't even tell which way is east. Now what? For most of our time on this planet, this was not a crisis. It was just Tuesday. And the people who lived through it didn't need a folded sheet of paper to find their way. They carried something better. A map made of songs, stars, sand, and the feel of water against wood. But here's what makes this strange. We treat the paper map as if it were the starting point of travel. As if no one could cross a desert or an ocean before someone drew a grid on a page. That story is backwards. People crossed whole oceans for thousands of years before anyone thought to flatten the world onto paper. And the tools they used were so layered, so alive, that in some cases they rival what satellites do today. Let's turn the page, but not to a map. To a stretch of sand so wide it swallows the sky. A Tuareg guide stands at the edge of the Tenere, one of the most bare landscapes on Earth. No trees, no rivers, just sand and rock stretching out past the curve of the world. And yet this guide will walk across it without pause, without doubt, and arrive at a well he has never seen with his own eyes. How? Because someone sang him the way. His route is not drawn, it is spoken, a chain of names. Each name is a place, a ridge of dark stone, a shallow dip where rain pools once a year, a patch of gravel that crunches different from the sand around it. The guide does not think in terms of north or south. He thinks in terms of next. What comes after this? And after that? The whole crossing is a story told in order, and he knows every line. This is not random. Across a vast stretch of open desert, those caravans named over a dozen of these stops. Points of proof that you're still on the path. Miss one, and you know it fast. Hit each one, and you're a day closer to water. But what happens when the landscape has no ridges? No dark stone? No gravel patch? What happens when every grain of sand looks the same? That's when you look up. Now picture a different person. A woman on the deck of a small wooden boat somewhere in the deep Pacific. No land in any direction, no compass, no chart. Just the sky. She waits for dark. And when the stars come out, she does not admire them. She reads them. Each star rises at a fixed point on the east rim of the sky and sets at a fixed point on the west. She knows dozens of these pairs. As one star climbs too high to be useful, she shifts to the next one, just rising behind it. A chain of stars like a chain of dunes. Each one a heading, each one a chapter in the same story. Her hands hold a notched stick up to the sky. She lines up a star with the notch and the flat line of the sea. The angle tells her how far north or south she's drifted. Skilled hands could read that angle down to half a degree. Not perfect. But when your other option is no clue at all, that kind of reading is a gift. Now you might think this only works on clear nights, and you'd be right. Clouds kill star reading, so does rain, and this is where the limits of any single method start to show. No one tool solved the whole problem. The desert guide needed more than landmarks when a sandstorm erased the trail. The star reader needed more than stars when fog rolled in. Each method had a crack. But what they did, what no one talks about enough, is stack the methods on top of each other. So when one failed, another held. But that still doesn't explain how a person in a canoe, blind to the stars with no land in sight, could sense an island hiding past the curve of the sea. You're sitting cross-legged in the hull of an outrigger. Your eyes are closed. The boat lifts, drops, Steady rhythm. You've felt this rhythm for days. Then something shifts. The pause between swells stretches by just a breath. 2, maybe 3 heartbeats longer than before. And the swell doesn't hit the hull straight on anymore. It comes at a slight angle, nudging the left side a hair more than the right. Your eyes are still closed. But you smile, because that change, right, that tiny shift in timing and angle, means land is near. Somewhere ahead below the horizon, an island or a reef is bending the waves. The ocean swells wrap around it the way a stream curls around a stone. And your body, trained since childhood to read these pulses, just caught the signal. This is not myth. Modern buoys confirm it. Wave timing and angle shift in clear, measurable ways near land. The ocean writes a message in its rhythm, and these wayfinders learn to read it through the skin of the boat. But here's the thing that makes this even more wild. You can't learn this from a book. You can't learn it from a single trip. This kind of knowing lives in the body. It takes years, and it only survives if someone teaches it face to face, hand on hull, out on the water. Which brings us to the part of this story most people miss. Every system we've talked about, the desert chains, the star angles, the wave pulses, They all share the same weakness. They live in people. And people die. People forget. People get sick, get old, get lost at sea. So how did this knowledge survive for hundreds of lifetimes without ever being written down? The answer is ritual. On the Camino de Santiago, pilgrims didn't just walk, they sang. And those songs were not random poems. Each verse described a turn, a spring, a chapel on a hill, a stone bridge over a cold creek. One verse for roughly every stretch of road. If you knew the song, you knew the way. And if you taught the song to your children, they knew it too. The melody was the glue. Rhythm and rhyme made the details stick in memory far better than a plain list ever could. Hajj routes use the same trick. Dozens of verses for a journey spanning over 1,000 clicks. Each line a milepost. Each rhyme a hook that kept the next landmark from slipping out of your mind. But songs alone aren't enough. Songs can drift. Words can shift. A spring dries up, a chapel crumbles. What then? That's where the gatherings come in. Berber groups held festivals every couple of years. Not just for music and trade, but for route fixing. Elders and young travelers sat together. They compared notes. They argued. They updated the songs. A dried up well got removed. A new shortcut got added. These were not casual parties. They were system updates for a living database. Silk Road merchant guilds did something alike. They met in the rest houses built along the route. Traders who had just finished a crossing shared what had changed. A bridge washed out. A pass blocked by snow until late spring. A new toll at a certain gate. Over time, these meetings cut the rate of lost caravans by a real margin. Think about what that means. Without paper, without ink, without any fixed record at all, a network of human beings kept route data current across thousands of clicks. They did it through trust, through repeating, and through the social pressure of a group that depended on good directions to stay alive. Now, some scholars push back on this picture. They argue these systems were too messy for real long-range trips. Star errors that could land you far off target. Songs that broke down in new land. Wave reading that only worked for people who grew up doing it. They say true global travel only became possible once paper maps and brass tools showed up. And they're not fully wrong. Each of these methods taken alone had real gaps. But this view misses the core insight. No one used just one method. The whole point was the stack. Stars gave you direction. Waves told you distance. Landmarks confirmed your progress. Songs kept the order in your head. And group gatherings kept all of it fresh. Peel away any single layer and yes, it looks fragile. But together they built something that got people across oceans and deserts for thousands of years. Recent work makes this even more clear. Brain scans show that expert navigators can hold a few dozen landmarks in order before errors start to spike. That's not endless, but it's enough for a multi-day crossing if each landmark is well chosen. And the social layer, the songs, the festivals, the guild meetings, spread the longer routes into shared memory. No single brain had to hold it all. There's also the case of Australian songlines. For a long time, outsiders treated these as spiritual tales, pretty stories about the dreaming. But fieldwork has shown they encode real places with startling precision. The songs don't just describe the land in vague terms. They pin locations, water sources, and safe passages into a story frame that can be walked, repeated, and taught across lifetimes. So what does all this mean for us right now? We've handed our sense of direction to a chip, and that chip works great until it doesn't. Batteries die, signals drop, servers crash. And when they do, most of us are as lost as a child in a parking lot. The people who came before us were never lost in that way, not because they were smarter, but because they practiced a different kind of knowing. A knowing that lived in the body and the voice in the group. A knowing that got tested every single trip and corrected every single gathering. If this journey through sand, stars, swells, and song pulled you in, there's a whole world of forgotten knowledge waiting. Subscribe and the next story finds you. The desert guy didn't need a screen. He needed a name. The next ridge, the next well, the next verse of a song older than any map ever drawn. And that was enough.